Good afternoon, YouTube viewers and subscribers. So, as you can see on my bench here, I've got Gabriel's Saito FA-170R3 here, and I don't know, a few days ago did a quick look at this, and the deal with this engine was that he had purchased it from a seller on eBay, and according to that seller, this had just been to Horizon Hobby Services and had rings replaced. I don't know what else was done to the engine, if bearings were replaced or what. And this was supposed to just be, he was going to send it to me, I was going to run it, break it in because it has new rings in theory, and I was just going to send it back. I was not sanctioned to do work on this engine. But the other day when I was checking the valve lash on this engine, because I was going to do that before I ran it, obviously, just to make sure everything was good, I had put quite a bit of Marvel mystery oil in this, so I've got some oil kind of here. But I was going and checking the valve lash, and if Horizon actually serviced this engine, and I've never sent an engine to Horizon service before in my life, so I have no clue what the plan is, how they do it, if they replace all parts necessary, if they run the engine, if they set the valves. I don't know what they do. All I know is if this was sent to Horizon, it's pretty sketchy in my opinion, because none of the valve lashes were set properly. They were all in excess of 0.1 millimeters, which is the maximum Saito spec. And I got to cylinder number 2 here, and I noticed something rather disturbing that I'm gonna try to show you if my camera will cooperate. I found this exhaust valve spring was quite loose or worn. In fact, the valve is set now, or the lash is set, and I was just able to, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, I'm just barely tapping this. Sorry, I'm trying to get this so that, see how that valve is moving as I just barely tap it? Now if I do that to this one here, this is really tough to try and do. Anyway, this takes a hell of a lot more effort. So in my mind, this valve spring, well, you can see how little, well, you can't see how little pressure I'm putting on it, but I'm putting very little pressure on it, and that spring is very weak. And the other thing I noticed was that it just seems like some of the adjusters, I've got the rocker covers installed on these others, it must be one of these, seem like they're a little, out of whack for an engine that was serviced. Like I said, I don't know if Horizon contacts the person and says, hey, we found these things wrong with it, and then the person has the opportunity to say yes, no, don't do this to an engine. I don't know. All I know is I'm not very impressed. If this truly came from Horizon Hobby Services, I'm not very impressed with what I'm seeing, because none of the valve lashes were correct. This valve spring is extremely weak, and I contacted Gabriel and we spoke on the phone. I pretty much just said, I'm not going to run this engine like this. I just don't want to risk it, because that spring needs to be replaced in my opinion. So we talked and discussed, and it appears that I'm going to be doing at least a partial teardown of this engine. It might be a full. I don't really know yet. Obviously I'm going to start with this cylinder, maybe just pull this one head off, see if there's any way I can tell if a new ring has been installed. But the other thing that gets me is, if typically on a service call I would think they're automatically going to do bearings. Well, this prop drive hub is secured to the engine as if maybe it was run, or they tighten a prop to it. I don't know. It just seems weird. It seems like if this had been serviced, unless they run the engine, why would they bother to snug that down when it had, a nut on it to keep it from coming off? I don't know. It's just, I don't know what Horizon Services does, and this just doesn't make sense to me. And now obviously they don't clean parts, because, they just don't. And just like this intake manifold, it's dented. Why in the hell wouldn't they replace that also? So I mean, there's just a lot of question marks around this engine right now then make it such that I told Gabriel that I really didn't feel comfortable running this engine, so we discussed it, and I'm gonna do a partial, if not a complete, teardown of this engine here very soon. So I'll see if I feel up to making videos. I may not be narrating on the videos, I may just be making a video of the teardown just as documentation, because it is quite tiring to do that. But another thing I told Gabriel I'd do, and I need to zoom in here, is I wanted him to see that, hopefully it'll show up in here, that these rocker covers are quite worn, and the gold plating on them is looking pretty rough. And yet that's another thing that, you know, either the owner told Horizon just do the absolute minimum to this, and he was just being cheap because he was selling the engine, or what. But I don't know. I don't know how that works. But even these rocker covers are pretty rough. So I'm going to leave that up to Gabriel to decide if they even have gold rocker covers in stock. Quite honestly, I think the silver ones would look every bit as good on this engine. But so I'm going to be doing a teardown of this engine here, and we'll see, you know, how many videos I make. If I make too many, I'll be having to try and document it to some degree anyway for Gabriel anyway, if I see things out of whack with it. But anyway, so that's the latest on this engine, specifically for you, Gabriel, and for everybody else watching.